Hello, good morning, or I should say good evening or a good afternoon. I don't know where everyone is tuning in from, but hey, we're happy you're here. This is the Offstage Tunes live stream, and the theme of this series is all about going live again. Last week, we talked about do's and don'ts of playing live. This week, we're going to talk about, oh, actually, it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we talked about that. And now we're going to talk about merch, all about merch. Going back to live, I've attended a few shows and I started to see merch again. And I started thinking, well, what are musicians doing, especially indie musicians? Because I chat with a lot of independent musicians and they do everything basically themselves. So, how do you come up with merch? Is merch right for everyone? How many different types of merch do you have? How do you even price point? How do you come up with a pricing strategy? And then really, what do fans want? So if you're tuning in, I would really love to know, hey, are you a musician? Are you a fan? Or do you think you will have different role in the music industry? I would love to know that because this discussion is really not just for musicians. It's for fans as well because you go to shows, you want to support your artists, and what is the type of merch that would make sense for you as a fan? Let us know. Let's start the discussion because there's so much to talk about. We have five amazing speakers that are joining in today from they will be sharing all different perspectives in the music industry. We have musicians, we have fans, we have people representing like live venues, as well as merch company like selling and designing merch. Lots of different opinions from different backgrounds, which is gonna be great. We can't answer everything today, but at least we'll start the conversation and we'll have a good time. So please, if you're in the audience, if you're watching, send your questions. The speakers can respond to them. Send your comments. Let us know so we can have a truly kind of interactive session. We only have about an hour, so without further ado, I'm going to start introducing our speakers today. And first one, well, if you watched the live stream 2 weeks ago, you may remember Azarinho from France, who is joining us here again. And I want to say he is actually the inspiration for the topic for today. And why is that? I have a quick video to show you. Let's go to that.
Directors. Okay. She is correct. She wants to be in front of the camera, just like we are right now. We're all in front of different cameras. But of course prefers to be actually in the same physical space as the audience members. And we all have our differences.
That was the clip. So as I was watching a replay of that video after the live stream had ended, I realized, wait, as I was talking about something else, he was showing his different merch items and just totally random. Let's bring Azarinho onto the show and give him a quick 30 seconds to tell us about you. Hey, so
Hello,
welcome
darling.
back. And what were
Thank you.
you doing with merch, and what is it with your merch items that you were trying to express?
I don't have merch. I have fan art. This is all fan art. They send me these things. They say, "Oh, look at this! I made a sculpture of you. I made a picture of you. I made a painting of you." This and my fans give it to me. But I have my tokens, the little transparent things you saw. I call them fan tokens. And those, and everybody in the audience, please listen carefully. Those who believe in my career, if you buy it today, listen to me carefully, buy it today, and when I'm famous, it's very soon, I will give you 10 times the amount of money you spent on it. So if you buy it for $1 plus sending ships costs, I will give you $10 in like 1 or 2 years. If you buy one for 10,000, you'll have $100,000. This is a pyramid scheme of the merch, and I'm here for you. Don't hesitate to buy. Thank you.
All right, you already lost me with all the math. I have no idea what that was all about. It didn't sound totally legit. But let's get into that when we start talking about pricing. That's Azarinho, everyone. Who do we have next? But before we get to that, I want to quickly address the comments. I'm seeing comments actually. Wow, at 10:29, which is an hour before this, we got a comment from Luffy the Dong saying first. I've never gotten that before. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Christine, Eldo, Emre, and Boy Pierce. Good to see you again. Wow, thanks everyone for joining in. Love it. Um, Okay, I recorded this and we'll hold him to that. There you go, boy Pierce, referring to what Azarinho said. Up next, we'll
He
get
has
back
to
to your
buy it.
comments.
Yeah, he can record as much as he wants. He has to buy it before. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, let's not let Azarinho take over the show just yet. Allison Leia,
Why not?
JazzRock, Brian Peters. Yeah, we've got four more speakers to introduce. I want to introduce JazzRock, and we have a little overlay, a little photo here showing that JazzRock wearing her own merch. Pretty badass. Let's bring JazzRock onto the show. And hey, welcome. You are both a musician as well as a merch company. Which perspective do you think we'll be hearing from today?
Both.
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 All right.
Because what I do is I've been in branding and marketing for over 15 years and helping brands. And because of my passion for music, I want to give my knowledge to our fans for SilentFury, as well as to just other musicians about how they can really optimize their merchandise for revenues. And that's what we do. So with my band, I'm always kind of the one that's leading that for my band as well. So I can give examples both from my band, my other clothing line, my clients, and in the industry as well. So anything I can do.
Perfect. Can't wait. Thank you very much, Jasmine, aka JazzRock. Next up, we have Allison Leia, and I saw a video that she made recently. She's got her merch table right before a show. Can we show that here? It's just like a quick snapshot of her, I think, a coffee cup, some stickers. There we go. It's a little hard to see, but hey, awesome. So you definitely have merch experience. I can't wait to hear from you. But maybe like a quick intro from you, Allison?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I always love chatting with you. But my name's Allison Leia. I'm based in Nashville, Tennessee, originally from New York, and I do folk pop music. So a lot of my merch inspiration comes from the songs itself. Like I have a coffee cup, literally right here. But I have a coffee cup that I made because I have a song called Coffee Cup. So I really try and integrate the two. Yeah, that's all. I look forward to it.
Great. Okay. So, Allison, we're going to hear from you very soon. Next up, a different perspective. Brian Peters, he is going to be joining us and sharing some fan perspective as well as live venue. He has a lot of experience with live venues. Brian, you want to tell us about both of those perspectives?
I mean, as far as a fan goes, I've been a fan of music for years. I've, owned hundreds of T-shirts from bands, etc. Always been a live music fan. As far as venues go, here in New York City, I ran Webster Hall, which was one of the larger live music venues for 8 years. I opened up with Poisson Rouge, so I kind of have a perspective both from a fan side and a band follower side, as well as say the actual people that are throwing the live concerts and what that does. So, it'll be an interesting conversation because I've never heard from the band perspective outside of a few of my friends themselves.
Cool. And just quick question, Brian, what shirt are you wearing?
This is a Baby Metal shirt from Korea.
From Korea, wow.
Yeah, I collect their shirts. So I actually try and get not only shirts from the shows I've seen, but if they play certain special shows. So when they played Australia, I had to have the Australian shirt. When they played Korea, I had to have the Korean shirt,
Awesome. So I kind of knew what the answer might be because Brian and I met at a Baby Metal concert show. So amazing. We're going to hear more from Brian. And we have another artist joining us all the way from, I believe, California, somewhere in West Coast. And Yo is here on the show. Kudos to Yo for joining so early in the morning. Hey, hello.
What's going on?
What is going on indeed? I would love to hear what your experience with merch is, and whatever that might be would be super valuable to our conversation.
Dope. Well, my name is Yo. I am a rapper from Washington State originally. And yeah, I mean, I've been doing music for the last 8 years. And as far as being an independent artist, I think it's very important to have, like Allison said, she puts her personality into her merchandise, and her fans love who she is as an artist, and they love their merch because of that as well. I think it's just really important to connect with your fans the way you connect with your fans with your music. So I think finding dope ways to sell your art as a keepsake the same way you sell your music, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
We gotta find dope ways to do everything for sure. Thank you,
sure.
Yao, for that intro. I want to bring everyone back. So let's have everyone back in the panel. And I'm gonna start off by asking a question. So everyone here in the panel, my question to you is, what is your favorite merch item over the years? It could be your own. It could be something that you purchased. I just want to know. Think back to what that is, and let me just really quickly look at the comments. Let's see. Oh, we got a baby metal fan in the audience, which is awesome. Aldo, hey, ugly, my buddy Brian. Hey, I think Brian, this is your fan here.
I know Aldo from Texas.
Great to have you, Aldo. Thanks for being here. And if anyone watching here, feel free to drop your response to this question. I love shirts, no doubt. Great. Like that, Christine. Okay, circling back to the panel, I'm going to actually start with Yell. And what is your favorite merch item?
I think at least right now, I want to say vinyls.
Vinyls.
I love vinyls. Collecting my my different artist friends' vinyls, and I want to say hats because I wear a lot of hats. I love all kinds of different hats as well. Of course, t-shirts, but I think my favorite right now is vinyls and hats.
Vinyls and hats. I do like those as well.
Sure.
Azarinho, I'm just going clockwise now. He's nodding, but he's not answering.
Sorry, the question is, what is your favorite? It's the favorite merch item. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
My favorite is this one. It's from Apple. It's $25. I made my own with my autograph in the back, and it's $50. If anyone interested, please contact me. This is the very best. Your glasses are clean. You can see through them. It's very good.
Okay, I'm starting to regret, and I must say, we are not trying to sell any merch from anyone here, even though Azarinho keeps trying to plug something. Not sponsored. Moving on to Allison, please.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite merch item. Honestly, I really love festival merch, like merch you'd get at music festivals. I found that, like, especially back in 2018, 2019, I was going to a lot of them, and I found that at night I would get cold and buy like a long sleeve shirt or a sweatshirt or something. And then I just started collecting like clothing. That, or I was gonna say vinyl originally, but I didn't. I wanted to add a different one. But honestly, anything that really like reminds me of an experience is when I feel inclined to buy merch.
Awesome. So vinyl gets 2 votes, and then clothing, of course. Great. Brian, you're up next.
I mean, I find the answer of vinyl to be interesting because I would always consider like physical media, like say vinyl, CDs. You know, you're actually buying the band's product. So I actually did find that answer to be very interesting because all of a sudden the product itself, what the band puts out, people consider merch. I always considered merch to be auxiliary stuff that's outside of the music itself. So that's actually an interesting answer, that people find the music itself to actually be collectible in different forms, which is kind of cool. For myself, my favorite merch was my leather jacket back in the 80s, and right now I have a baby metal jacket I made because I took a t-shirt and then changed it and made it into something else, which made it more personal.
Wow.
So if you ask me, my 2 favorite merch was stuff that I kind of took their stuff and made it my own.
Right. I would love to see that jacket. I might have seen it.
No,
yes,
you haven't.
I haven't. Okay.
No,
Just
no.
quick note on the product is like albums and CDs. I went to a show recently, and I asked the performer, and I said, "Hey, will your CD be out because it was recently out?" And he said, "No, I'm not sure if anyone listens to them anymore." I still do. Does that make me a dinosaur? I have all the different players, so that's just me. But Jasmine, you're up next. What is your favorite merch item?
Well, I have an interesting answer to this. So I think I forget the woman who said, you know, an experience, but you know, I look for merch that's experience related. Although we make T-shirts and we design a lot of things. So actually, what's interesting to me is like when you go to festivals and certain unique shows, you can get things like autograph picks or autograph set lists or autograph tickets. That's what I collect because I know those things become invaluable over time. So I have that from
Wow. Yeah.
very shows. And I actually sold a set the other day at one of our shows. So it's just interesting because I look for those really unique things that are keepsakes besides, you know, a pile of, you know, a drawer of shirts. So.
Right. And that makes me think that if you have something signed and is limited only to that concert, you can probably sell them at a much higher price point, right?
Yeah, that's what I tend to do. Keep them like that, very fresh.
Yeah. And it just have limited supplies only. Cool. I can barely keep up with the comments here. I used to collect rare vinyls in the 80s, Japanese imports of American brand. Okay, so rare album covers. There we go. Rarity, scarcity does help. So I want to dive into each of your unique perspectives. And I think the best way for me to do that is to ask you the next question, which is this. On a scale of 1 to 10, all of you here, what's your experience with merch? It could be 1, very little, or 5, like I'm a total pro. And I think all the different perspectives here would be really valuable because if you're a pro, then you have obviously a lot more kind of best practices to share. If you're very little experience, you can learn from each other, but also you may have like fresh perspective because you've been doing something for a long time. You might be locked into doing the same thing over and over again. But let me shut up and then just turn it back over. I'm going to actually start backwards. I'm going to start with Jasmine now.
Well, I would say it's 5 because I've been dealing with e-commerce merch for a very, very long time. And as a band leader, offline merch, and with my clients, like helping them with their merch at events, even performance/education events. So I am very involved in merch, and we actually produce merch. So I'm happy to share anything because I'm very.
Okay, cool. Brian, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 5?
Scale of 1 to 5, I'd say maybe a 3. You know, if I went back to like, let's say when I was a young person, I just moved to New York. Now at that time, my genre of choice was punk rock, and the punk rock bands, everything was do it yourself. Like, and you know, shows were $5 for 5 bands. The bands didn't make anything. They probably paid to play. Once you consider, like, you know, getting back and forth from the shows, a lot of the shows we'd set up our own venues. I mean, some of the venues were in squats in abandoned buildings. So none of the bands were making money playing. They made money on their T-shirts. If they didn't sell their shirts, they made nothing. You know, and that was all do it DIY, do it yourself. So, you know, the bass player might have happened to have been the artist that designed the shirt, and then the guitar player and then the drummer were the ones like screen printing them themselves. I mean, that was, you know, so they made money on their shirts, and those were all my friends. So I had a ton of their shirts back in the day. Recently, it's more, I have a collection of Baby Metal shirts. I have a collection of Baby Metal merch. Ghost and Iron Maiden, those are the 3 bands I collect their stuff because they just put out great stuff. You know, and as far as even with my job, you know, I've run several music rooms here in New York. So, you know, I'd have to count in and count out on the bands every day. So I have like both behind the scenes friends and a personal collector, you know, type of perspective myself. But yeah, I'd say about a 3.
Okay. I was probably put you at a 4, but we'll stay with the 3. Ellison, what do you think?
Yeah, well, going off of exactly that, it kind of reminds me that I love DIY merch from artists that I love because it makes everything one of a kind. So I feel like that really adds to the value of the merch too. But myself, I'll give myself like probably a true 3 because I have, you know, made merch. I've made, you know, essentially like one batch of merch in every category, like stickers, CDs, coasters, T-shirts, you know, like coffee cups. But I've only really done one release of everything. Like I haven't released enough yet to call myself a pro, but I'm like just starting to learn, like, okay, I love working with that person to make stickers because the product always comes out really great. And then I'm learning what my fan base wants, which is like, okay, I always sell out of this, you know? So then I feel like I'm still learning, and I have a long way to go, but I wouldn't call myself a beginner.
Cool. A quick question before we move to the next speaker. What do you always sell out of? Just curious.
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, Allison. Yeah.
Honestly, usually stickers. Especially back when I was starting, I really started playing music consistently in like 2017, and I was doing a lot of farmers markets just to like up my chops and play really long gigs. And again, I'm a folk artist, so it kind of worked. And I found that all the kids always wanted like stickers. And then it became this running thing. And then I found that also translated to shows, because I think it's a similar thing where they're cheap to make, they're cheap to buy, and they're a little thing that people can do to support the artist. And it's not really, but then they have something as a keepsake. So I really think that that's a win-win. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. This is not a plug. I don't sell merch, but I do have stickers. I use them actually to label my stuff, because when I'm out shooting, I have a lot of video equipment, so I have to make sure I know which one is mine. I don't sell them, but interesting to know that people like them. Azarinho, you have a lot of fan-made merch. Do you have things that you make as well? And then I'm going to let you answer the question about 1 to 5. Oh, he is probably frozen, or he just refuses to answer that question. All right, next. Yeah, we're going to go to you. 1 to 5. What's your experience with merch? What do you think?
I would have to say at least like a 3-4. I would say that because one, as far as my official merchandise doesn't drop until next year, but I feel as an independent artist, I've been surrounded by, you know, me and my other artist friends doing shows from scratch and helping the creative side with my friends that have, you know what I'm saying, their own clothing lines and starting up their own kind of clothing businesses. Yeah, I would say that as far as like selling merch, as far as the creative process, I love the creative process of everything. So I love being a part of those kind of circles and those kind of moments of helping somebody find the perfect print that fits their personality or themselves as an artist. You know what I mean? So I would say like a solid 3-4.
Cool. I'm seeing in the comments, people have responded. Some are saying 3, some are saying 2. I'm seeing one that says there are 5. Always want to have some type of reminders of memory about my favorite musicians. So from a fan's point of view, merch is a great way to help them remember kind of those experiences that they've had. Okay, so those are kind of like the general questions that I want to open up to kind of start this discussion. Feel free to jump into the upcoming questions. I really want to start the conversation by asking, well, why merch, right? Because is it just another revenue stream? Is it to build relationships? Or is it like a must-have so that people, if they want to buy something, it's probably all of those, but which one should be like a strong reason for an artist to have merch? Anyone can jump in. Go ahead, Jasmine.
First and foremost is to build a brand so people can kind of understand who you are. That's number one. You know, you're an artist or a band, you have a personality. Everything we do is custom illustrated, right? So it's about building the brand and the personality, and the revenue and the value comes a little bit later. But I think that's number one. It's really, you need to have merch if you have a band and you know, you're putting efforts into all the money that you're spending in rehearsal and, you know, every time you're out there, whether it's online or offline, you want to represent your brand in the right way. So I think it has direct revenue value and also indirect revenue. And I can talk about that later, but that's number one for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like branding and lifestyle. Like certain genres of music, I think like your metal audience tends to buy the most merch. Like you walk down the street, I see more metal shirts than any other thing because metalheads want to identify themselves as I'm a metalhead. So it's a lifestyle thing. So you're branding. And it's great because it's your audience is advertising you. Yeah, and they're paying for the right to do so, but also they want to identify with I'm a metalhead. I like this band, and it's part of their personality per se.
Interesting that this could be genre related. I'm curious if Yao, you're a hip hop artist, Allison, you're folk, and then Azarinho is he's a romantic singer, if that could be called a genre. Do you see that branding? How do you tie branding with your genre of music?
I'm happy to speak on it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think, I mean, everything that you said has been valid. I think there are certain genres that gravitate toward merch, like more so, like especially when it comes to, I mean, music, like you said, metal immediately comes to mind. But honestly, I think I'm like trying to come up with a way to say this, but I think that's why it's important to know like what type of fan base you're catering to, because like Jasmine said, it is so important to like show who you are through your merch, but it's also important to understand your audience and to say like, okay, well, is my audience really into buying t-shirts, or are they, are they not really trying to showcase that, or am I not like I'm not one to really buy pop artist t-shirts. So if I'm becoming a pop artist, why would I do that? When I should be looking at what quirky ways, like maybe I should sell hats or something else that kind of looking at trends of what people are into, especially within your genre, because it does change so much from genre to genre. But I feel like I'm not like explaining it, all correctly, but you get the picture.
No, I like how you're a musician, but you relate to this kind of strategy from a fan's point of view. So like, if I'm the fan, what would I do? And that helps you inform your decision making.
Yeah,
I think that's
100%. I mean, I think that the reason that musicians become musicians is because they were fans first. So that's totally where I fall into. I look at the merch I buy from my favorite folk pop artists and why I do. And so that really helped me get in touch with what people might want.
perfect. Anything to add, Yel or Azarinho, on this topic of merch and genre and branding?
Yes, because I'm, as I say, romantic singer, and my merch is mints. Because when you listen to romantic songs, you might want to kiss, and having a bad breath like a dead dog is not good. So a little spray, that's nice. Candles, if you want to have a romantic setting, you have Azarinho candles. You can see my face melt as the candle burns. Condoms, lube, that kind of thing. Poppers. I have little roofies. It's called from Richard.
Wait. We're not advertising that. Oh, okay. He's been muted. Thank you. Yel. Is there anything you want to add?
Well, I love what everybody said. I agree 100% with what everybody said. I think
Except Azarinho.
Yeah, but I think Allison brought up a good point. I feel like when you start your brand, you notice how strong your engagement with your fans are, and that's another way to engage. Okay, how many fans or how many eyes can I get to this one product and sell this product as a brand and as an artist? I think that's a good enlightening point to see, is how much you can really engage your artist or your audience into your merch,
Yeah, so I
Interesting.
think we go ahead, please.
No, I mean, one thing, if we're going to talk about, like, say, branding and genres, like a metal artist or a punk rock artist, or, somebody that's on a fringe, a more independent thing would just be willing to sell shirts. Whereas you get into, say, pop and hip hop and rap, where this is the mainstream, this is what everybody's buying. Those guys don't need to sell shirts. They get sponsorships where they become clothing lines, or they match up with a perfume company. Taylor Swift does not care about selling T-shirts. She'll do a deal with Maybelline. That's her merchandising. She's got her brand, and she goes huge with a large corporation. I think it's more the independent or smaller artists that need their own products to sell. Because if you're in like, say, the big league, or like the pop industry world, you're going for like getting Nike to support you, or Adidas, and doing that kind of a deal. They merchandise themselves differently. Once they get their brand and their brand is established, they go huge and make multi-million-dollar deals.
Yeah, we're mostly talking, I think, independent artists here because, well, the ones that have label behind them, they have the resources, which is a great segue to understanding, okay, if you're an independent artist, you have to kind of do this on your own. You don't have a huge budget. How do you even approach merch? Allison said price stickers are really inexpensive. I think Jasmine has something to add to this. So go ahead,
No,
Jasmine.
go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. If you had something to say.
Oh, I was just saying, how do you approach, number one, you want to find out what your fans want, but you have to also make it feasible for yourself. So if you're just looking to merge, where's a good starting point? Because this could easily get very overwhelming if you're thinking about t-shirts and hats and stickers and the mugs and everything else, vinyls. Where do I go? What's step one?
Well, first of all, you have to have a plan. So some t-shirts behind me we've done for a band, my clients' bands, always actually start with a reason. And that reason generally is either a single release, right? So with that single release, that's an opportunity that you can monetize, right? So we usually start with that. If you have a single, or maybe you're asked to play in a show, right? Then you need to assess, well, how many people are going to be at this show, or what do I want to do with this single? So that's number one for us, right? And then we look at, okay, well, what kind of budget do we have? So if the band maybe only has like a few $100s, maybe $500 or something, and they want to release the single and they want to do a show, they might have one nice illustrated piece of merch that can be replicated. You know what I mean? So some of those behind me, right? We just start off with an illustration that is their song cover, because they can't even get out the gate without that, right? And then how do they use that or reuse that on some of the things that you guys have been showing, right? Like if it's a small show and you don't have a lot of money, like Allison was saying, like we've done for a lot of our bands, all right, you got a single, you got to let people know about it, and you're trying to grow a fan base. So let's do some really cool stickers, very low cost, and we're going to tell you how you're going to distribute those at the show. You don't even need to sell them if you're spending $50. Maybe you need to give them out, right? So that you can get more fans. And then down the road, you have this plan. Well, I have a bigger show coming up, right? So then I want to invest in t-shirts. So it's really about like taking it step by step. But we always start with like, what's the initiative? What opportunity do you have before you go crazy and sit on like a pile of clothes that never sell? That's like the worst case scenario. So that's where we start.
That's a great way to start this conversation. So have a strategy, have a plan. You want to know how many people are coming to the show, for example. So you kind of know what your targets are. I think Allison, I saw you wanted to share something earlier.
I feel like I was about to raise my hand, but then I was like, we'll get there. But yeah, this actually brought up like a light bulb for me, just because I've noticed, like I'm mostly reminiscing now about like having utilized a pre-order for certain thing. Like I used a pre-order for when I sold CDs to determine how many CDs I should order. And I did that for weeks leading up to the album. So then I knew, okay, you know what? I'm not going to order 5,000 CDs. I recognize that this amount of people are going to buy them. And the fact of the matter is, especially with merch, like Jasmine's saying about having the single release show, like you're going to sell the most merch at that single release show, and everything else is probably going to be leftover merch. And once you recognize that and you say, okay, I sold 100 tickets to this show, so I'm not going to order 1,000 CDs because I'm going to sell probably 15 out of 100. and then and it exponentially increases from there. But I think also recognizing, like, if everyone comes to the show and everyone buys a sticker, that's another thing. Or maybe a sticker comes with a ticket or something like that. And I think that's always been very interesting. An interesting way of looking at it for me is, how do I let people leave this show and be able to look down and say, okay, that's what their name is. So that's why I'm like, it's more important as an independent artist to me to have very inexpensive merch so that they can say, who did I just see? I rocked in with my friend. I have no idea what their name is. I also, something I wanted to throw in was that QR codes have been really incredible as a way to send people to your website or your Spotify page, or a link to buy merch. Is you can give out little business cards with a QR code for free that maybe it comes with the sticker or the ticket, or just you get it when you're leaving the venue or anything. And just investing a little bit into having this free stuff can result in people pre-ordering the real thing that you're trying to sell. So I think, honestly, all in all, I think that getting creative with the ways that you're letting people remember your name and get your merch, just being really like specific and narrowing in about exactly what we've been saying with your audience has helped a lot.
Yeah, on that point, I actually, when Azarinho was talking about candles and mint, I actually do think those are creative ideas, because I've never heard of those before. And if I'm at a show, I'm listening to like a love song, and I see like a candle, and if it smells nice, I might buy it, because
I'm buying
a
it.
show, dinner, right? Yell,
Yeah, that's so dope.
yeah. It's only
Iron
until he
Maiden
started talking
lube.
about what?
No, I'm making a joke. Iron Maiden lube.
Okay, so we're
tires.
not gonna go there.
For a metal band, you can sell old tires that you can burn in your place and just feel the heavy metal and burning tires. That's good. It's very good. It's all free ideas. You feel free to use them.
I think it's really important, like 100% the planning. Jasmine, I think you're 100% right. The planning. And the one thing I love about selling merch and learning what numbers are right and what should I start off with is also connecting a marketing plan to that. I feel like we live in an age now where there's social media presence. So like influencers, like you might not have a major following or a major fan base that's buying a lot of your merch, but you can find a dope marketing plan or create a marketing plan that reaches more people than just in your show now. You know what I'm saying? Or just at the festival. It's a lot of different creative ways you can push your merch now, which is super, super dope.
Yeah. I found something that Allison said was interesting about having a QR code connected to your merch, because, we're talking about what's moving forward. And like, let's say you're wearing a band t-shirt, and it's a great t-shirt. And I've had this happen where I was like, that's a great shirt. And they're like, oh, do you know the band? And conversations start that way. So that would be interesting if somewhere on a piece of merch they had a QR code, like you're talking about the band. It's like, oh yeah, here on the back, or down in the corner or whatever. It's like, and they could just scan the band and immediately go to their page. Like that's kind of interesting, of like incorporating a QR code with every piece of merch in some way, because that is kind of the way we're going.
Yeah,
that's why the stickers are well, and things like, I wanted to say towels. I want to throw this out there. Some work for like a lot of my clients, and I also used to work in the NHL. And I remember like game day was like towels. Everybody keeps little towels, and so like festival towels, those little towels are pretty expensive, and they're a good keepsake. Like people will keep them. That's another one that's just, I don't know. We didn't mention it, but I know that works really well for any genre, honestly. Yeah.
I have gotten a fan-made towel before at a show, and they're great. And then the
Was it
fans
yellow?
made it, with the yellow.
I think I know what towel you're talking about.
Exactly. They handed it out right before a show, and then during the show, everyone was waving. It was great, an engagement
Everybody
piece.
waves it. Exactly. It's like a brilliant idea. Yeah.
That's a really great idea. And with the QR code, I agree. I have not seen a QR code on a T-shirt yet, but I have
Like down on the bottom or something. Yeah.
Right. I have heard from a band. They work with like local restaurants, and they put their QR code on coasters, and so people ordering the menu and drinking, they can just go to the QR code, scan, and it goes to their Spotify. So yeah, there's some really creative ways, and not too difficult to execute. So we talked about branding, why merch is important, could be important for the band. I do want to touch on selling merch, and does it make sense from a money perspective, because we don't want to just spend money, spend, buy the merch, and and end up negative. So what's the take on it? How do you make sure that you don't lose money on merch, even though sometimes you have to make money to build your brand? Yes, but how do you also generate income?
Well, I'm gonna tackle this because I deal with it, because I have my Warrior Women in Business clothing brand. So I'm constantly doing pop-ups for that and all this other stuff. So I deal with this all the time. I think number one thing I see with every band that comes to us is they're generally not selling direct, which is smart because they're not sitting on merch. So usually it's a gradual development of merchandise sales. Again, it goes back to planning, to take your band to the next level. So usually they're selling on some third-party website. And although believe me, the profitability is very low on those sites like Zazzle, Etsy, Redbubble. I mean, there's so many of these things. At least they're not losing money. And from that, I always tell them, and even for my own band, it's like, okay, this is good market research, because we can understand what designs are working, what designs aren't, what collections people want. Like when somebody comes to a show, I'm the lead singer. So I always wear a different SilentFury t-shirt. And then I'm like, okay, what do they like? What do they not like? What are the women like? What are the men like? You know what I mean? It's so important. So I'm kind of always doing market research. So I think it doesn't hurt to have merch on a third-party site at all, because it's a very low cost barrier. If we're talking, Louise, about getting going, for people to start to understand your brand. And then from there, you start to sell, and then you can, like Allison was saying, you're not sitting on things, and then you can start to grow from there. So usually the band clients don't start direct sales unless it's specifically for a show, based on a certain number of audience members. But if we're talking about online, that approach works really well.
Especially if it's online, you can print on demand. So all you need to do is have the design ready, but you don't actually have to print 100 t-shirts, for example, right? But can you do that at a live show? You probably can, right? You need the physical item.
No,
so that people can
every live show I do for SilentFury, I bring in I bring like maybe 5 or 6, because I've learned over time. And then I'm like, okay, if you want an order, just send me an Instagram or something, order it online, and they're fine to wait. They're fine to wait in a lot of cases, because we're not at the point with my band that we're playing like Madison Square Garden, you know what I mean? So like our shows are maybe like 50 or 100 people, but they're okay to wait for a shirt. And at this point, we do a lot of giveaways as well, which is another tip I have to give, because it's worked really well. Like, I don't mind losing, because I'm a big believer in investing in the band. So losing a little bit of money to gain later. So we also give out teas and things like that. Hear from fans later, hey, I want a tea, and then they can order it online. So we shift a lot to e-commerce, so we don't have to carry. You know what I mean? It's all about the balance of the money. We're always kind of watching.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, Brian, because from your perspective, working at live venues, what do you see? Is it people bringing boxes and boxes of merch, or is it starting to look more e-commerce?
When I was at Webster Hall, we were say a 1,500 person venue. So you would get acts that were national acts. They would bring boxes. It would take me 45 minutes to count them in and 45 minutes to an hour to count them out, because the venue got a cut, et cetera. Honestly, looking at it, from a perspective of, I know what we made at the door, I know what we made at the bar, and I know what they made in merch. The merch seemed negligible. But then when you take it from another perspective, yes, the merch seemed negligible, but that actually was the only thing the band got to keep, because they didn't touch our bar. As far as the door went, we got a piece. The promoter, AAG or Live Nation or Bowery Present, they got their cut. By the time the band got their cut, it was less than a third. the merch actually was a decent percentage, you know. And that was the one thing, you know, you always like, as a, you know, I'm going from like a venue perspective, it didn't seem like a lot of the overall picture of what came in from that show. If you added up the bar, the, you know, the ticketing, and then the merch didn't seem like a lot, but once you take all the hands that were feeding off of this out for the band themselves, it is actually a decent amount, maybe 40% in some cases. You know, but now what I'm worried about is I've seen like Live Nation for like more national acts. Live Nation's got into the perspective of they partner with the venues. So now if the venue's taking a cut of the merch, guess who's getting that? Live Nation. They also got a percentage of the ticketing. Now Live Nation is even getting into managing online stores for bands. Like, what are the bands I buy for? Last time I went to buy one of their shirts at their online shop. Guess who I'm going through? Live Nation. So it's like, you know, merch used to be one of the purest forms of a band getting money. There was no record label, well, no middleman. That was them. They got it. Now it's like even the ticketing companies are clawing into that, which is kind of sad. You know,
I'm curious. Yeah.
You know, but as far as like, you know, from a venue perspective, looking at the overall picture, it seems like a negligible amount until you imagine that's the only thing that goes directly to the band. Then it becomes substantial when you compare it to, you know, the overall what a venue would take in a day.
Yeah. So as musicians, asking the panel here, the places where you perform, do you get to keep 100% of the merch? And we'll continue with the kind of money perspective conversation. Hopefully we'll hear from one of the three that we haven't heard from. Do you get to keep 100% of that? And does it still make sense for you as a additional income?
I think it makes perfect sense. I remember a couple of times traveling to a show where you're paying for your own travel and you're paying for your crew to come with you, or your producer or your engineer to come with you, and you're selling merch, and honestly after selling all the merch you break even, but then you realize you sold all the merch. So there's a win-win, there's like a lose-win in a perspective, but also there's like a win-win in that too. It's like, oh, I reached that much more people during the show, even though I didn't make too much. So is it worth it? I say 100% it's worth it. You get a new fan today, you know?
Yeah, more people going home with your branded products.
Yeah.
And showing it to more people. You wear a shirt, hundreds of people see it every day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
please.
Oh, no, I completely agree. I also think, I mean, going back a couple people to what we were saying about how much merch do you buy to start? Honestly, I kind of looked at it as like buy one, like I started with CDs, you know, probably 5-6 years ago. And then once enough of those sold, I took some of the revenue to buy more merch. And then once enough of those sold, I took the revenue. And I kind of look at it now as I'm using the revenue to keep buying merch. So once I ran out of stickers, I used that revenue to buy more. So it's not like I'm constantly, you know, taking from my savings to buy merch. It's that actually the merch in a way is paying for itself. So I look at it as like, if I'm breaking even every time that I buy merch and then get a little bit more, then I'm doing well. So I kind of try and follow that and encourage it to other artists.
Great. Azarinho has been a little silent. He was muted by us a little earlier, but hey, your comments are still welcome. Don't feel like we'll still mute you if you say anything too funny. But I want to address one of the comments here. Aldo says, never underestimate the hardcore fans. They'll buy anything. Seriously, anything. All right. Okay. So on that note, what is the I don't want to throw this at Jasmine because you've had some limited edition items before. What do you think is the how far have you gone in the price point? Like, what's the most expensive item that you've ever sold?
Oh, I thought you were going to say purchased. Because purchased, I've spent hundreds of dollars, but sold $10, $15. You know, our band is only like 4 years old. So, But the fact is,
Even
we're
the
selling-
autograph, the signed ones.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're not like our last show. Maybe we had 100 people, so we're just getting there as a band. But for my clients' band, it's 500, 750. Like for one of my clients' bands, we did a whole we had them do a photo shoot and autograph signing in a totally separate space from the performance, and they charged all the fans to come in to get professional photos taken, autographed with the band, and then the band did a private show. So I coordinated that, for the client. So that's some of the things we do for our clients where they make really good money because they're a bigger band. They're independent band. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. But as a fan, you spent hundreds of dollars purchasing.
To Brian's point, so I love what Brian was saying, because I mean, I don't even know how many shows I've gone to in my life. It's ridiculous, and like every T-shirt. So I came from being a big classical music, then into metal, and so old metal. I actually collect books of bands. So I have signed Guns N' Roses, signed Metallica, signed Iron Maiden. That's my merch that I collect. I think it's really, really cool. They have graphic novels. I collect those. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this because they're very unique. It's not like another T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly right. So, wow, that's amazing. So definitely, you just echoed what Elder was saying. Never underestimate. If they like you, they will go for it. They will buy it. They will want to own a piece of that memory, that experience.
Yeah, that's why the most important thing is understanding your fan base.
Cool. We're getting close to the end of the show, but I do want to ask, this is hopefully a simple question. How many should you have at a show? Because I can think of, having maybe a couple of items to 10, 15. Is the more the merrier, or does that overwhelm and then people tend to buy more when you have fewer or more? I don't know what the answer is. I'd love to hear anyone with some experience who can share with that. Number of merch items.
Can I comment on that? And then I won't say anything.
Yeah,
else.
please.
Because I just really want to comment on it, because not only does my band play shows, but I produce shows, you know what I mean? But they're independent, they're smaller. And so for me, my first answer is it definitely has to do with the setup. Because especially since COVID, my band and bands that I've worked with have played a lot of outdoor shows where it's very fluid and there's not a merch table. So with those, generally I'll recommend to put a little bit less merch and sell online more, versus where as a smart band, you ask ahead of time what does it look like in the merch layout, and then you kind of count for the fan count and the merch table. So that is definitely important these days.
Got it. Okay. Depends on where you are and physically how much space you have. And okay. Anyone else? Few versus many. Any opinions on this?
I would say it generally would depend on the size of the band and their audience. If you're, say, a very independent artist that's playing a venue that only has 150, you bring 20 shirts of each size, and as you're playing, you will go through them, but only one design. If you're a band that's playing a 1,500 to 2,000 person thing, you bring 2 or 3 shirts, every size, 20 of them, because you're going to sell them eventually. And the reason you bring 2 or 3 designs is you bring one that's a simple 2-color, which some people just like simplicity, and they'll wear something simple that's a black and white. Also, that's if you're producing a shirt, a black and white screen print is much cheaper than a full color. But they bring a full color one because some people like that and they're flashier, and actually they probably get noticed more on the street, because if you're a band, if you're breaking even on the merch, a lot of it is getting your name out there. It's branding. Becoming a brand. I mean, there's certain bands. There was a band called Porn Star out of California that never made money off of being a band, but everybody liked the shirt because it said Porn Star. They ended up becoming a clothing line. CBGB's. Hilly has probably made more money off of CBGB's t-shirts than he made off the fucking venue.
Wow.
There and I know that because a couple of my friends managed the place. They made more money off of the brand CBGB's than they ever made as a venue, because nobody bought a beer in CB's ever.
The power of your brand. Sometimes it exceeds the value of the service that you bring.
CB's has been gone for years. They're still selling CBGB's t-shirts.
I think more
Wow.
now than nostalgia, you know, Brian.
Yeah, Hilly's daughter is making as much money as Hilly ever made.
Yeah, totally.
Very, very interesting. Okay, if Allison, Yell, if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in. But I do want to give Azarinho, I want to throw him specifically a question. But because you have fan-made art, what was your strategy in getting? What did you do to have fans want to make art for you? Because that not everybody gets that. I don't see that a lot.
Well, it's a mystery for me, for myself. It's a mystery. It might have to do that something that one of them is my brother, and he's just crazy about 3D printing and that sort of crap. And my father-in-law, who is a painter, and he decided to do that. And but yeah, this is the fridge magnets and the mug. I have a mug saying I'm an expert salad tosser. I don't know why he put that. Maybe I showed you the. I will show you if you invite me again. I will show you that mug. It's an American guy. He did that. He did the playing cards, everything. So I think he wanted to start a branding thing himself, and he just used my face to test the results of the printing, and he sent it to me. That's my fan base. 3 people, and they have nothing else to do. Losers.
Well, I do appreciate you being so candid with that. So family, hey, it's great to have family that support you. They're gonna be your seeds. They're gonna start helping you spread the word. So that's great.
My brother
And then,
wanted me to pay for the things, but I never sent him the money. So I say it's he gave it to me.
there you go. There's fan-made art. You can claim that. I'm curious about the guy who just make things for you because he likes your face. All right, that's a great way to do it. Maybe some artists we want to say, well, offer this band this image for print tests. That's another way to go.
I have a funny, very quick story. I commissioned a friend who was she draws and she does hyper realistic drawings, and I commissioned her to draw the face of John Cleese from a picture, and she did it so perfectly that she posted it online, and the photograph who took the picture of John Cleese saw it and sent her another picture of the same series, like a limited series, because she did such a good job. I'll send it to you. You'll see it. So sometimes magic can happen. Who knows?
That is true. Sometimes magic happens. You just have to take the first step to create some magic sauce and then let people see it, let people share it. Great. I want to give everybody a chance to give some final recommendations, whether it's for fans or for fans. Yeah, fans. Now, how do you approach buying merch? I guess more so for musicians. How do you create your own merch strategy based on your different levels of experience? Let's go with Yell first.
What was the question one more time?
The question is your final recommendations for musicians on the topic of merch.
I would just say, like Jasmine said, to continue to plan and try to dissect what your audience likes, what craves them to your music, and try to find a dope creative way to turn that into something that can be purchased, like a dope, unique one-of-one shirt or a mug that goes with your single, or dope creative ideas like that. Always, I draw to that every single time. So being unique and just pushing your name as far as it goes with your merch and your brand.
All right. So creativity and try to find a way to be unique. Thank you so much, Yell. Allison, what is your final recommendation?
Yeah, if you're really looking for a place to start, I would say utilize social media. Throw up a poll of literally what do you want, what kind of merch would you buy, and just put some options and see what people say. Everything. And if you put up designs with which merch design do you like, you'll be surprised with how many people follow through and buy them because they feel like they were a part of the process, because they were. And I think there is validity to bringing your fans and the people who support you, be it your brother, your cousin, whoever, and making them see the creation of your art, because that's eventually going to be what helps you grow your fan base as an artist and have a really engaged fan base. So that's all I will say. And good luck with merch. Let me know if you want to chat about it.
Thank you. So Allison's recommendation, as simple, as straightforward as that is just ask them what they want. Okay, Brian.
I mean, I'm coming from the other end since I'm not a musician, but I would say, if you're an artist and you're coming up with merch or coming up with ideas for merch, do something that's from your heart, that's catchy, that you would wear yourself. Because the reason this audience is going to your show is they're inspired by your ideas and your creativity. So if the merch you create reflects the music you're creating, your audience is more likely to buy it, wear it, and then more people will see it.
Definitely from a fan perspective, you want to feel like you're aligned with the artist that you support.
Right.
So, yeah.
And people want to buy that shirt because they identify with the artist. They want to identify with the artist. There's no reason to buy a shirt and wear it unless you're like, I want to connect with this and, bring it into my own.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that fan perspective because it's all about building that connection. So we don't want to lose sight of that. When you're designing something, you want it to look pretty, but don't lose that authenticity in bonding with your art, with your fans. Jasmine.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a double-edged answer to this one. So I'm going to give you from a musician and then from somebody that does creative design and branding for bands, right? So, and it almost is one and the same, and ties off to what Brian said, actually. So we design, and, even for my band, like, even when we came up with our logo and our name, everything is very intentional. We're a punk alternative band. The music is very intentional, right? So we look at the brand, we look at the individual songs as individual brands and individual merch. And so to take that to the next step, when I play a show as a front, I'm always like joking around, I'm not singing. I'm actually, I'm watching the fans. I'm watching the fans because I want to understand their emotional reaction to our songs and which songs they like the best. Because our merch, a lot of our merch is telling the story of each song. So that actually details which shirts and what merch and what designs we want to pump out more of. So kind of Brian's point, that's really, really important that you understand what your fans think about your band. Like, what other bands do they think your band is like, or your individual artist? What songs do they like? What resonates with them? Like, I always look at what the fans are wearing in the audience. When they're wearing a Blondie t-shirt, and they love the music, I know they kind of understand it, and I kind of know where the merch goes. It's hard for me because I'm a very visual person. I'm trying to explain this with words. So, I think as an artist, you really have to understand, you have to listen in terms of what the fans say your music is like, because it's very much what they're gonna then conceive your merch to be like, and that's how we approach it, and that's what drives success. So
Awesome. So yeah, that kind of echoes with Allison, like you're listening to the brand, to the fans, and then Brian was saying you want to make sure that they feel that connection. And then you go back to the creativity and find something that will marry all of them together. So a little hesitant to ask Azarinho. He may have some wacky ideas, but hey, let's go. Azarinho, you're up next. Your final recommendations for musicians when they're creating a merch strategy.
Wow, that is do something funny, something that they might, a statement that people would like to wear, like I'm dumb, something like good, something nice, or I don't know. Yes, that's my advice. Do something and be proud of it, and they do it with sentiment. If you do it with sentiment, people will feel it, and the love will flow, and it will be very good. Thank you.
I do love the candle idea. I have to give that to you. I can visualize it, if a candle of an artist's face, and then it just melts away. And especially an artist who is funny like you, Azarinho, I think that that could really work. As a fan, I think I might buy that. But first, I have to be converted into a fan. We'll talk about that separately. But it has been great talking with everyone here. I appreciate everyone for hopping on, whatever time zone you're in. Thanks for spending an hour to share your secret sauce and your experience, everything that you've observed in the past. And just really give some insights. This is not intended to be like, this is what you need to do to build merch. This is more like, this is how you should, what you should think about and why. And then you can start building your own strategy, because it's not a one size fits all. Everyone will have a different approach. So thanks everyone. It was great having you. And this video will be available on Facebook and YouTube. So for anyone to review this, definitely will be there. And I want to thank everyone who's joined us here in the comments. I've seen a lot of comments. We haven't gotten to all of them. But thank you for some of the baby metal fans. I've seen like more than one person responded to baby metal. So that's great. I'm personally also a fan. So that's amazing. Finally, before we sign off, I do want to just bring back our Anything Goes section, because quick shout out to Jasmine, who shared a lot of insights early today. She has a webinar coming up in just a few days, and it's all going to be about copyright and how do you protect your own musical works. And that's going to be November 10th. So go ahead and find Jasmine. She's on social media, JazzRock, as well as JS Media. So you can find out more information for that webinar. Then next week, not next week, in 2 weeks, we will be back. And this time we'll be back with some artist interviews. And we do have one spot available. So if anyone wants to have like a one-on-one interview and just talk about your life as a musician, inspirations, anything at all, let me know and contact me via social media. Any channel is fine, and we can set that up. And that is it for this week's topic, all about merch at live shows. Thanks everyone again for tuning in, and have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you.